All right. Hello. Figured today would be a good day to try and see how far along I can get in making a Tetris clone in PowerApps, um, in the Power Platform. Who knows? It might expand outside of PowerApps, but that's kind of the idea. It's gonna probably be a pretty like free flowing sort of video. Might be multiple parts. I'm not sure. I assume this is gonna take some time. I haven't even really started. It was just an idea, and we'll see how far it goes. So, whenever I'm starting any project these days, whether it's Power Platform or some regular web development or Python or, database schemas, whatever. Recently, I've been starting with this nice online program called Excalibur. It's basically just a really quick way to get ideas down. It's kind of like a whiteboard sort of deal. Um, and it looks cool. And you can link it to your computer. So, like, a file can automatically save to your computer and stay synced. It's very nifty. Anyways, so I think that's where we'll start. So let's just write down some ideas. So let's throw an ideas box in. So we're going to be attempting to make a Tetris clone in PowerApps. Um, what are some things that could go wrong here? Well, we're going to see as far as we can go with PowerApps. So PowerApps obviously is not really designed for making games at all, which could make this quite challenging. We'll see what limitations we run into um, before we get or when we get there and see if we can overcome them. But yeah, so we're going to need assets for our clone, our Tetris clone. If any of you are not familiar with any sort of game development, especially 2D game development, you need assets basically. So think of them as like pictures or sprites that you can move around the screen. Um, that's actually one of the only things I did before this is I already collected assets. Um, if any of you are familiar with itch.io, it's a very common site for indie game development and free assets. That's where the assets are from. I will try to have a link to it, probably through GitHub or probably GitHub for the assets. If it's not in the description of the video, please let me know and I will try to get that added as soon as possible. So, see video description. So basically the assets we're going to need is all the blocks in a Tetris game, and then also we're going to need I'll just call it the game board. All right. What else are we going to need? That's kind of it, honestly. We're going to need PowerApps, which I assume if you're here, you are somewhat familiar with what PowerApps is. But some of you might be coming from standard web development or standard development in general. So basically, PowerApps is a full stack ish platform. It is. It's a full stack platform by Microsoft, generally for business applications. We're going to make a new solution to house our application. And everything required within that application. We'll see if we expand beyond just PowerApps, but for now, it's always a good idea to make something in a solution. What else will we need in PowerApps? A way to control animations. So I have some ideas of how I'm going to do this. Probably timer controls and logic. Let's see. A way to make the blocks stop at the end of the screen. So this will probably be done through PowerFX logic. What else do we need? We're gonna need a main game timer. Actually, I haven't thought about this part too much yet. Let's think. So in Tetris, you can either have, you usually have a fixed timer. So fixed timer. So we'll think about this as like our round timer, if you will. Oop. And I can also use, that looks a little ugly, can use, yeah, we'll put spaces. I don't like it without the spaces. Sorry. Can use the round timer as an anchor, for lack of a better word, an anchor for the movement of blocks. And basically what I mean by that is, let's put an example. You know, like every time the, not one word, every time the counter goes up by 1, the block will advance by 10 pixels. Something along those lines. What else do we need? So we have sorry, let me just format this a little better. There we go. I actually like that considerably less. Let's put it back. So let's see. Is this everything we need? Assets, all the blocks, so all the different Tetris shapes. A game board. Gonna make it in a new solution in PowerApps. We need a way to control the animations, likely timer controls. We're gonna need to write logic to make the blocks stop at the end of the screen. Or I guess this is gonna be a tricky part. I'm not sure how this is gonna be handled in PowerApps, but also if they collide with other blocks. So that's going to be tricky. And then another tricky part is going to be handling collision. I don't know how to spell collision, apparently. Collision. With the side of the game board. That's going to be tricky. Oh, we need controls, of course. We're going to need game controls. Oops, sorry. Game controls. To start with, we will have block movement side to side. Unfortunately, PowerApps doesn't have any support for keystrokes or anything like that, so we're going to have to do this with icons. So, basically left and the right icons. So not the most exciting thing, but that is currently a limitation of PowerApps. I am not aware of any workarounds for that. If anyone has any ideas of how to use keyboard controls in PowerApps, I'd be happy to hear it, but I am not aware of any. It would be nice if that was something they could add in the future, but as far as I'm aware, that is not a thing. So kind of think about like if anyone used to play those old online Flash games, none of them really had keyboard control support. PowerApps kind of similar functions in a similar way. Dropping blocks. These are going to be nice to have things. It's not exactly crucial to the game loop. Actually, let's write that down. Not nice to have, but not crucial to the game working. Would be something like fast dropping blocks. Seeing the next block that is coming. Ooh, I also need a way to rotate blocks. Honestly, I have no idea how to handle that. So this might be something pretty hard we're gonna have to work on in the future. Just try and figure out how to handle that. Let's see. Is there anything else we need? Game controls. Block movement side to side. Rotate blocks. We need scorekeeping. Gaining points for clearing lines, and bonus points for things like Tetris. And then game controls, handling game timer, scorekeeping. For this, I'm going to have to look up the normal rules. Normal rules for score in Tetris, because I am not familiar with them off the top of my head. And then we're going to need a way to clear the actual blocks once they have been counted as a score. I also have no idea how I'm going to handle that. Yeah, that might be something to think about down the line. Because, let me think. So, I might have to rethink my assets because let me write this as a note. Will I have to handle each block within a Tetris shape as a separate. I don't know how to spell separate. Separate entity, so they can be cleared independently. Yeah, so I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically, well, we're in Excalibur. Let's just draw it. Um, oops. Let's draw it down here. So basically, let's say you have a Tetris shape. Let's say you have a Tetris block that's like this, right? So obviously there's no block in Tetris that looks like this in particular, right? But let's make a couple more. So each Tetris block consists of 4 blocks, 4 individual blocks, right? So let's make the classic Tetris block. The four straight Tetris block, right? So this is a Tetris block. You could have an asset that is just this entire thing, or I'm thinking what we're gonna have to end up doing is, let's see. Oops, that's going the wrong way. My bad. Each block is an independent. I missed the N. Independent. It's a long word. Independent asset. So they can be cleared independent of one another. So likely we're going to have to do that. So it's a bit annoying, to be honest. I might have to find or make different assets so that I can actually build the Tetris blocks. So it'll be a little unfortunate if I have to do that. Let me just, whoop. Yeah, that looks terrible. All right. These, there we go. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. I'm likely gonna have to do that in the future. We'll see. Because what happens in Tetris is, yeah, I think I explained it pretty well. So what else will we have to potentially do here? So let's read. So Tetris clone PowerApps assets for the Tetris clone. Yep. So I have some assets, but I might have to modify those now that I know. Make a new solution. Yep. So we're going to do that. A way to control animations, probably through a timer. And the blocks need to stop at the end of the screen, or if they collide with other blocks. I'm really trying to think of this. Sorry. I'm thinking of this problem right now, but we will get to that in time. First, we just need to make the basics of handling timers and whatnot and animations. Main game timer, fixed round timer, anchor for the movement of blocks, yada, yada, yada. Rotate blocks. Okay. So I think we have some idea of what we're doing. So let's jump into PowerApps and get it. Start working on it, I guess. Let's just start working. Start trying to get some ideas down. So we're on over to PowerApps. So if you're familiar to PowerApps, this is kind of your launch screen, if you will, if you head on over to make.powerapps.com, assuming you have the right licensing and whatnot. I'm just going to make it in my default environment, and it's a good practice to always build projects in solutions. It makes them very easy to package and move around, share on the internet, move between environments, whatever you need to do. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's just make a new solution. And let's call this Tetris clone YouTube. There we go. I already have myself set up as a publisher, so if you don't know how to do that, you just click new publisher here and you can go through the prompt. And you don't really have to worry about this too much. When you export your package, you can change if it's editable or not when you move between solutions, but that is all about solutions. If you want to learn more about solutions, there is lots and lots of videos out there. And if you want me to make one on solutions, I can do that as well. So you can leave a comment and let me know if you want to learn more about solutions. So this is going to take a second, and here we go. My nice blank solution. So we're just going to go up here and make an app inside of this solution. So if you are familiar with standard web development, this is basically creating the front end of your web application. This may or may not have online features in the future. We'll see, but PowerApps is more than capable of doing that. So we'll just keep it in a tablet form for now. We will likely change all of the aspect ratios at some point. So let's just name it Tetris clone YouTube. I'm just going to name it the same as the environment. PowerApp is going to take a little while and get everything ready for us. There we go. And so we have our screen 1. We're just going to rename that to screen. It's always a good idea to rename your screens. So we'll just call this screen main, screen Tetris main. All right. So let's see. We're in PowerApps and we have our blank canvas. So first things first, let's start getting some of our assets in. And this is actually an interesting conundrum. So for now, I'm just going to do it the very, for lack of a better term, lazy way. And I'm just going to make a new screen. And, I'll probably figure out a better solution to handle this, but if I don't, I don't. But this is just going to be an easy way to get the assets in and make them easy to access for me in the future. So I'm just going to make an asset screen. And I'm going to make a image here, add an image file. Let's see. Give me a second. I gotta find them. I saved them somewhere, I swear. Let's see. Assets. All right, so first we're gonna need to import the board. So this is our main game board. Here it is. And let's rename this asset to image Tetris board. Okay. It disappeared. Sometimes images do this in PowerApps, and I don't really know why. When you rename them, they just sort of disappear. So let's try that again. The joys of working with PowerApps sometimes. Let's bring it in. Image shouldn't take as long because it's already imported. And let's call image Tetris board. Once again, it disappeared. I guess it doesn't like that name. So We're just not going to rename it for now. Unfortunate. But it is what it is. So we have that asset. And let's bring in another asset, which is going to be our first block shape. There it is. And let's insert another asset. I bet you can guess what we're going to do. Gonna bring in the next shape. I can already see potential issues with doing it with fully made shapes. They are not standardized in each of their block shapes and sizes, which is unfortunate. Let me think. You know what I could do? I could build a component that is a block. Let's try that. We have our game board. Let's show off making some components. So we're going to make a new component. Now I'm just going to call it CMP, short for component. And let's call this Tetris single block. And actually, before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to find the size of each of these blocks within here, if that makes sense. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and measure one of those blocks. And to do that, what I'm going to do is first resize my canvas. Let's set this to 419. And let's see. Zoom out, please. There we go. So now if I click on this image, it has dimensions, which are 419 by 768. So what I'm going to do is go over here and write a custom. And it's going to be a height, width of 419 by 768. So I think that should work. Now, if I scroll that out, that fits basically perfectly in our screen. So there we go. We have a Tetris board. We're going to save it. Don't forget to save your PowerApps. If you don't Control S after you make a PowerApp, even though you named it, and you close it, it will just disappear forever. So you have to save. Anyways, so we have our game board and PowerApps, and our canvas matches this game board. Now, in the future, to show off score and whatnot, we might have to change this and make, expand it on the sides or something. But for now, this looks pretty neat. So for now, let's try and measure one of these squares. And to do that, I'm actually just going to take a rectangle, which is probably in the top right corner. There it is. And we're just going to fit it into here. I'm actually going to edit the pixel size itself. It's looking like this is going to be about 35 by 35. That looks about correct. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to our component. Okay. And we're going to make the height. And I think it's 35 by 35, right? Rectangle was 35 by 35. Just double checking. Measure twice, cut once. 35 by 35. And I'm actually going to try to make these look a little more fancy. Well, there's two ways I could do this. I could make it a button so that I can get cooler looking shape. I could make it a shadow box, which would give me an even cooler shape. Or I could just make it a square. A square with a border, perhaps. Or do I want to just make it a button with a border so I can make rounded edges? I do think rounded edges will look considerably better. So let's do that way. Let's insert a button. So as you can see, this is a button. As you can see, this is a button. So let's, false. Please get the text out. No, I don't want false as the text. I want you to just not have text. Okay, there we go. And let's try and style this button a bit better. There is overhang from the button, which is annoying. So I think what I'm going to have to do is go 34 by 34. Is that correct? Might be 33 by 33. Basically, by default, when PowerApps, which is something that's quite annoying, to be honest, when PowerApps makes something that has a border, it does not subtract that border from your dimensions here. So we have a border of 2 here, right? So if we add 2 to both of these, it makes 35. So that will be the shape. Does that make any sense? I'm not sure if what I said makes sense. But basically, unfortunately, you can't just set this to 35 with a border. And we do want the border so we can differentiate our blocks. Now, as you can see, this is selectable, which we don't want. So we're going to have to turn that off. Let's see, there is a well, I can turn pressed fill. There's multiple ways of doing this. Let's try display mode dot view. Let's change it to view. Okay, so it is fine, but it doesn't have a border, which we do want the border. So what we're going to basically end up doing is go down here and let's set our colors. That's our text color. What we want is our pressed fill, self.fill, pressed. So this is the pressed color. So this is the text. And let's see, hover. We actually just want self dot. We actually want this self dot border. Self dot. Let me see. What is this? Border color. Self dot border color. So now when I select this, it shouldn't change too much. Let's see. Self dot color. That's not correct. I want this to be self dot fill. Fill. And I want this to be. This is color. I want this to be self.color. Okay. I want this to be. This is self.fill, so that's correct. Hover border. Hover color. Hover fill. I want just to be self dot fill, and I want this border color to be self dot border color. Okay, now I just need the selected border. Which one is it? Radius border, top left, no. Pressed border color. Pressed border focus thickness to 2. Okay, we did it. All right, so now I'm gonna need custom properties. Let's see. First one's going to be block color fill. And actually, we can actually do this in one property. So block color, and we'll just make a description of that. The color of block, oh, not the clock, block. And this is going to be a color property, input, correct. And then what I can actually end up doing, instead of making 2 properties, I will just take the border color, and it's already actually fine. So if I was to say change this fill, it's going to hopefully change the border as well. And it does. Perfect. So block color. So what I'm going to actually need to do now is set that to the fill property. So in the fill property, we're going to reference that custom value that we just made. So now, and let's rename this to button block. So now that should be set, and I should be able to, oh, sorry. Let's get rid of this rectangle because we already measured it, and add a custom Tetris single block. Let's bring it where we need it to be. Should be about there. Oop, oop, bep, bep, bep. That's fine. And let's change it to blue. There we go. We now have a block. So what is the, and let's preview that. We have a block. It might be a little off center, but it's a block. I am a little worried that the border isn't pronounced enough. So the block looks a little boring. So that is a fairly easy fix. So let's go back over to our component. And let's set this border to, first let's just try the border color. So let's make it fade by 30%. If I go back over here, this should update. Oop. That is a lot more obvious, but I do think it needs to be a bit bigger. So let's go back over here. Let's set the border to 4, which means I'm going to have to take 2 off of each of these. There we go. Did I screw that up? I did. I think. Oop. And let's center it again. All right. And if we go back here, we preview the app. Do I like that? It's fine. The styling's fine for now. We can go back to it. But we have a board and we have a single block. So what's next is we can try and animate this block. Okay. So what we can do for that is what I'm thinking. We will where do they hide timer these days? I'll just search for it. Put a timer control. Okay. And the duration is 6,000. So if I, for example, take the Y property of this and set it to, and let's redo this, timer, block, animation. I'm sure I'll have to have multiple of these, but for now, let's just write it. And we want the Y property to be timer block animation dot value. And let's take this and put auto start on and just see what happens. Okay, well, it fell right through the screen. Awesome. So obviously that was a bit fast. So instead, let's take this value and divide by 10. Okay. That's not a bad speed. It's honestly not the worst speed. But as you can see, it starts in a weird spot. So let's put another bit in here and add. Let's see, CMP Tetris block 1 dot height. There we go. Okay. So it is now falling down the screen based off of that timer. Now what will be interesting? So now I kind of have to think. Actually, this video is getting pretty long. So we've gotten some things done in this one, but I will stop it here for part 1. And then we will try and figure out in the next part how we're going to get it to stop falling once it hits another object. So, and then also how we're going to handle building the shapes out of these blocks. And all the other fun stuff we talked about. But anyways, thank you. If you enjoyed this, if you learned anything, or if you find this kind of stuff cool, let me know and leave a comment. And if there's any other stuff you are curious about, let me know. But anyways, thank you.